All right, we're live. Thank you for watching or listening. This is Faith in Business, finding your voice in identity. A great place for you to kind of brush up on some things, maybe with your identity, or maybe figure something out. So I'm Theresa Croft. I love to welcome you, my co-host Michelle Tufford. Michelle, I thought I didn't even talk to you about this off mic. I thought we could dig down into some basics
Yeah.
of identity.
Mm,
So
mm.
can you give like are you able to give like a basic uh definition of identity in
Ooh,
regards to faith? I put you
yeah.
on the spot.
I mean, put me on the
I
spot.
know I
Wow,
can do that
that's
though.
perfect. I love it. So really when I think about identity, it starts with the fact that we are made in the image of God, right? I mean,
Ooh,
we go right
good.
back to Genesis. Let's go Genesis
Come on.
because that's where we get to see you gotta go right back to where it all began, where it started, where we came from, right?
Wow.
So if it's not there, I mean, it's off. It's off.
I think it's a tough one to define
Mm,
identity.
you're right. It's a tough like, even when someone asks you, "Tell
Yeah,
me about yourself," like, where do we go to? We go to,
yeah. I
"I'm a mom,"
remember being in a
right?
table with some
Right?
gentlemen and I wasn't as understanding really what I was doing, but I said something about identity. He just flat out said, "What do you mean by identity?" I
Mhm.
thought, "Oh gosh, I'm not prepared." But I think identity, I think it's the core of who you are. It's in your DNA and it flows through all areas of your life. I think identity also can be seen with the old question, what did you like to do to play when you were a child?
Mhm.
Because when you're a child, you have no fear, you no inhibitions usually, unless you have trauma. I believe you can be healed of that. So I'm sorry. I always have to be careful with the childhood stuff. But what did you like to do? Like, I think we've gone back and forth. Like, my idea of fun at maybe 6 or 7 was climbing the top of the stairs. We had an old house, large stairs, and I'd get up on top and I would preach. And I was Catholic, but I didn't know any better. And then we moved and there was no big stairs. So I found an apple cart, tipped that thing on, got up on it, and I preached to the birds, the bees, and the apple trees. What am
Mm.
I doing now with a filter? Sometimes
Wow.
I'm using Apple products. I mean, everything I own is Apple to spread a message that I'm very passionate about. And the message is, just so you know, it's for those people who feel voiceless because of trauma.
Mm,
Discover transformation by finding your voice from your identity
mm,
and speaking, serving the person you once were. So identity, I think, is encompassed in there. And I think that's when people say find your voice, they're really encouraging you to find out who you are, find out who God made you. Like, I
mm.
was on this major mastermind and they don't this it's not a Christian thing, but they toward the end were talking about relationship, talking about personal development. And they'll
Yeah.
say the universe, but a lot of times it's just God and that they're trying to be all, secular or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But so does that make sense? Like very core, the very guts of who you are.
Yeah, definitely does. It's interesting how as we get older, there's certain experiences in our lives, whether that's trauma or, what we've seen modeled in the world and how we should show up. And there's certain things, then we go through this process of basically having to unlearn some of
Yeah.
the things that have blocked who we really are at the core. And so I love that you brought up, going back to as a child, what are some of the things
Yeah.
that brought you joy? There's this freedom as you see it in little children and the way that
Yeah.
they show up. My daughter, she's 6 years old and she loves to sing, and
Oh,
it's just so beautiful, and dance, and there's
oh,
just no filter. Like,
right.
she doesn't care. She just thinks that
That's
her
beautiful.
dancing is the best ever and that her singing is the best ever. And, like, I just pray, like, God, like, I just want her to have that kind of confidence.
That's
But I
awesome.
know the world comes and squashes that,
What did
right?
you like to do when you were little? You told me once.
Yeah, it's
You were a
interesting.
little businesswoman, weren't you?
I was definitely. I'm one of 10 children. So from, the time I was little, there was always like I was the oldest girl. I have an older brother, but as the oldest girl, I was like second mom, but also that leadership. But then there was business elements of
Yeah.
that. I loved Babysitters Club was like my book. I'm like,
Oh,
I
I love
dreamed
it.
of having like a babysitters like franchise where I was gonna
I
make
love
all
that.
money, and even, like, playing outside in the dirt, like, we would make things and sell
Yeah.
things,
Oh,
and
I
yeah,
love that.
it was
You made me remember something that I've never shared, as far as the identity piece. I remember visiting my dad, and he was a banker, and I went home and was trying to figure out where I could put an office and be a banker. It's like my closet. So I moved clothes, tried to make an office inside my
yeah,
inside my closet.
mm,
It's so like if you're listening live or recorded, think about that. Sometimes what you like is very in your very DNA. Now, if you suffered trauma, let me encourage you that you can be healed, that you don't have to be locked in it. And then
mm,
guess what? As you get healed, you truly get to serve the person you once were. Think
mm,
about I was at a conference a couple of days ago, and the lady said about the percentage. She was an advocate on top of her business for abused children. And she said you'd be amazed at the percentage of women abused, like 1 out of 3, or 7
mm,
out of 10. Just if you, she goes, if you went around this table, I bet you someone, whether
mm,
it's sexual abuse or physical abuse or being married to a narcissist for 26 years, you just be amazed. She said about the trauma. So I want to encourage someone if that
yeah,
is in your background, there is help for you. And
mm,
I know one of our things that we're a part of, we're wearing our shirts. Girl Power Alliance has a leadership academy, a 16-week program that covers so many different areas that you really can get help. And I
mm,
think Michelle and I both will tell you that we believe in this, and we also believe it for the professional, someone who is accomplished but they're ready to pour their life into someone else. And it's really set up as a place for a professional business who's a kingdom leader who can gain leverage compensation by pouring into kingdom women with personal and professional development,
mhm,
speaking, coaching, leadership, personal development. So be sure to, if you're a professional person and you're doing well, you're just hanging out with Michelle and T and wondering, okay, but I just think that's an outlet for some really professional, powerful women, like the woman we had last night on our leadership in the celebrity in the business area, finding Jesus and really being able to impact a great amount of people. So I
yeah.
believe we have people like that listening.
Yeah, and I believe too with the resources we have, and this is even been my personal experience coming here and how it relates even to identity. It's being surrounded by other, women and business professionals who love the Lord, who
Yeah,
can speak and remind you, speak life into who you are.
who
I
you are.
had the most amazing conversation with the founder of our organization, Michelle Schaefer, yesterday, actually, a one-on-one just call with her,
Love it.
and she just spoke so much life into me, and it just help remind me of, like, who the Lord has been telling me that I am. The Lord speaks through other people, right, and gives
So
confirmation.
good.
I had a moment with Michelle where she looked at me and she said, "For some reason," she's like, "I don't even know why I'm saying this," but she's like, "For some reason, when I look at you, I see a lion."
Ooh, love
And
it.
I was like,
Jesus, thank
"What?"
you.
Well, then I asked her, I'm like, "Well, like, did you know that I actually have a lion tattoo on my back?" Like, large lion tattoo on my back, okay?
Awesome.
She's like, "I had no idea." And I'm like,
That's so
"Yeah, the
good.
Lord has been speaking to me about lions." I've had other people tell me the same thing, and it's just a confirmation, again, like, I was sharing some things with her that I was struggling with in regards to identity. I think we all
Sure.
do. Even
Yeah.
we look and we compare ourselves to other people and we think, "Oh, well, they look like they have it together." Chances
Mhm.
are they're struggling with some
Yeah.
sense of comparison or imposter syndrome, or we're holding back. I think there's
Yeah.
elements of each one of us that are holding back
Yes.
who we truly are and
You
the
truly
voice
are.
that the
Mm.
Lord has given us to share with the world. And we need people around us to help unlock it, right? I
Yes.
believe that the Lord can use community and people and resources to
Yeah.
unlock those things,
Mhm.
but it requires an intentionality on our part. The
Sure.
enemy wants to isolate us. He wants us
Oh.
isolated, and he wants us to look around and
Oh,
compare ourselves and to shrink back. That's
wow.
like in that posture is exactly where the enemy wants you.
I
So
I
we
heard
gotta
a good
actively fight against it.
I heard a good quote about isolation, something like, "You're made to feel like it's a long-term infection, that you
Mhm.
can't get rid of it," and it's like, "Oh." And I well, let me speak of that, you're struggling or you're just not feeling like you're getting January started, do realize that the change of seasons can bring a little lag. Maybe that no one can relate to this, but I got sick. It took me a long time to get well, and then on top of that, I struggled with, like, uh, uh, depression, and I had was worked all December to get this course ready, Podcast Made Easy with AI, and I got it finished, and I just was so sick. But where was the depression coming from? And my friend who's also my counselor, she said, "Teresa, it's the season. Sometimes this just hits you during the season." Can you relate to that? You Miss Snow, Idaho?
Yes, I can definitely relate to that for sure. And that's another one. It's like that takes some intentionality kind of battle against those things. And there are definitely things we can do like light therapy,
Yeah,
happy lights,
yeah.
things with our nutrition, all these things that can help, right? But I think also I came across a real, I think it was yesterday I shared, just reminding me the importance of staying in gratitude. And I was like, when I get
No,
in those like seasonal
I
type
saw
things,
that. That was good.
really easy to slip back and
Yeah,
forget, but staying in intentional gratitude, and one of the things in the Sacred 60 challenge, I know we've talked about this before, is gratitude
his
journals,
gratitude,
right?
they do.
But like creating that intentionality in the way that we approach our lives. I mean, when we start, what I notice when I start to feel that way, it's like, ooh, I got to get back into gratitude.
So good.
Let's focus on the things that are good in my life and not spiral, because it's so easy in that feeling to kind of get in a spiral
True.
state, and you have to be intentional about like
Yeah.
snapping out of it. Which another thing with Radiant Leadership Academy, we talk about the second thought theory of and like capturing, and like you have that negative thought and be like, nope, nope, you got to like
You
interrupt
capture it.
the, what are
Yeah.
they called, the thought interrupt or the habit interrupt, right? It's like you gotta stand up and be like, nope, not that's not the posture I'm gonna take, right?
Wow.
So
Thanksgiving is such a mental thing, and it's free.
yeah.
And do you know that when you're thankful, you shift the structure of your brain? And
Yeah.
when you're thankful, regardless of the evidence of what you want, but when you stay grateful, it
Mhm.
produces an expectancy mode. So it's like you're grateful, even though you don't see evidence of what you want to see,
Yeah.
but it brings you in that expectancy mode. And you think, okay, that's cool. Well, Jesus is the greatest example. He had 5,000 to feed. Do you think he went like this? Okay. No, he said, "What you got, guys?" He had 2 loaves, no, 5 loaves, 2 fish. And
Yep.
what did he do for our sake before he lifted that up and he said, "Thank you, Father." And then
Yeah.
we find out there were 12 loaves left over. I
Mm.
mean, if you want a principle and say, "I don't know if I believe that principle," find the principle aligned in the word. And I was
Mm.
glad you posted that because I don't think people realize one of the greatest tools is free, and
Yeah.
it's Thanksgiving every morning. I try to be thankful every morning as part of my morning routine with I mean, I'm back into some neurocycle training for
Mm.
some of the trauma I went through, and it's just like, okay, I'm thankful for my cat today. I can't think of anything, and then next thing you know, oh, I'm thankful. I have a roof over my head. Oh, I'm thankful for this coffee. I'm thankful for my friend. I'm thankful for Michelle Tufford that she's in my life. I'm thankful that
Mhm.
I get to be a part of a group like Girl Power Alliance. And so it just kind of starts to flow. But
Mm.
hey, if you can't think of anything, thank God for your 5 toes and 10 toes. If you don't have 10 toes, I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt you, but
Yeah.
think of what you got here, man.
Yes,
And I'm
yes.
not trying to be corny about that, y'all. I'm just trying to be
Mm.
real. So anyway,
One of the things I feel like that can cause us to get into a posture of, discouragement is in seasons of waiting.
oh
And
yeah, good.
maybe let us know in the comments if you're in a season of waiting. There's like that, like, when is it gonna happen, God? Like you are, maybe frustrated, especially in business. We can be in
Mm,
these seasons of waiting where we're building and maybe not getting the momentum that we want. And came across, I've been really focusing in, the Lord has been having me focus in on Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. And I think it
Power.
relates well to even what we're sharing about the kind of that feeling
Mm,
of, depression seasonally or things that can kind of come up. But it says in Isaiah 41, 40, verse 31, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint.
so good.
But the thing in that Bible verse that I recently found out, this was from the NLT version, but in another translation, it actually reads, "But those who wait on the Lord will find new strength." And the meaning of that word "wait," like if you dig
Okay.
in and understand, like what it actually means, it's not necessarily a weight that we would normally think, but the weight is a posture of
Wow.
expectation for what the Lord is about to
Nice.
do. It's like,
Nice.
it
Wow,
made me
that's
look at it
good.
so differently, and even when we think of gratitude, there can be a heart posture in the waiting of expectation. You're, like, grateful for what the Lord is about to do. There's a
So
different
good.
posture that we can take in the waiting, and I believe that's a promise. It is a promise from the Lord right here about renewing our strength, right? And finding that new strength that the Lord gives, and that we will run and not grow weary. But it's in the heart posture of expectation
So
that comes
good.
knowing the Lord is about ready to do something amazing, and
That's
we're
so
just
good.
sitting in a posture ready to receive, a posture of great gratitude and worship for what the Lord
Yeah.
is going to do.
Someone grab that. That's for you. Someone grab that waiting. You know, I've came across this devotional in YouVersion, and it was the idea of waiting
Mm,
for your time. And I was just been enjoying it, but I wrote down something about sometimes we can wait and we feel like the resting society looks at it, our resting like, but you're waiting, you know? And she said this, your physical body needs to be in top shape for your purpose to be operationalized. Don't forget to eat well, daily 60. Add an extra hour to your sleep. Add an extra hour to your sleep and avoid the guilt trap that is often associated with resting. The refreshment you need is never out of reach. How might God have strategically set you up to encounter His word and presence? God
mm,
is not judging you because your season of waiting has led you to a dark place. Instead, He is waiting on you to turn Him once more. Time for the refreshing you need to lighten your load. I think that's a posture of that waiting. Take
mhm.
good care of yourself as you wait. Don't let it lead you to a dark place. And I was led, even though I think it was part of it was my sickness, but for like
Mm,
3 or 4 days, I was led to a dark place. And it
mm,
was very uncomfortable. It's not like I wasn't, I was thankful, but it was just a combination of not feeling well.
mm.
And you get that place and you say the stupidest things. I have no friends. I think
Oh,
isolation was getting to me. I live by myself in a
yeah.
one-bedroom room in a house. That's just my life right now, y'all. And I was just, like, going through and it was just so dark. I remember walking into my closet to get something, and the pressure was so heavy.
Mm.
And I think I talked about it last week, but just some good Thanksgiving. A little sunshine does help even though it's
Yes.
freaking cold for my daily walks. But,
Yeah.
um, but I'm just being real. We're just being real that we can understand the waiting, whether it's a waiting in your business or waiting for that many enrollers to come in or waiting for a turn or,
Yeah.
but it's just a process. And I think if we look at it as the process instead of I must have,
Mm.
then I think something happens. And I was convicted this morning because I have a new course, Podcast Made Easy with AI. My AI business is starting. And the Lord just said, will you let go? You are
Mm.
trying to control that. And I was like, oh, I am a control freak at times. Don't do my laundry. I want to do my own laundry kind of, control freak.
Yeah.
And then, so I surrendered it, and one of the things, and this is what happened. I surrendered. Before I surrender it, I'm thinking, what day I'm going to do a webinar on our AI. I'm going to do a basic course for Girl Power Alliance about AI, and I was just kind of like thinking all those. The minute I released it, it's like I got a date for the webinar. I got an outline for GPA's Chat GPT introduction. So sometimes in the waiting, it's God's waiting you to do this.
Mm.
Okay, you got your knuckle on there a little too much,
Yes.
Lisa. Does that resonate with you or anyone?
Yeah,
That just came to me this
definitely.
morning.
Definitely resonates for sure. And
Wow.
I think it does correlate over to even what we were talking about with identity, because I think the Lord, even in the waiting and us learning how to surrender, it the Lord teaches us so much about identity in that and who he is, but then also who he says we are. It's so
True.
interesting how when I'm in those seasons, how often the Lord speaks to me in regards to what I'm struggling with, but he speaks right to identity, like, right to,
Mm,
like, reminding me who
always.
I am. Yeah. I mean, and not to go on a long story, but I had an example of this where the Lord highlighted to me. I was on my way to the gym, and I've drove past this building so many times. It was like Eagle something. I can't even remember the name of it, but Eagle, like, so vivid, like, in my mind, I knew the Lord was, like, speaking to me. He said, "Look up eagles. I want you to identify and with some things about eagles." So I, like, looked it up, and the Lord completely rocked me in regards to an ego, but it was like using that in the way that I was communicating and asking him things. He was like speaking identity. It was like
Wow.
so often the Lord speaks to us in challenging times right back to who he says we are.
So
And
awesome.
so when you're in a season, maybe you're in a struggle, a wait season, and you're maybe even feeling that like imposter syndrome or comparison, take those feelings to the Lord and be so
Yeah.
real with him. Like
So
he
good.
tell him all the things that you maybe are feeling and struggling with, and watch and listen for how the Lord is going to speak right back into who you really are
Wow.
and your true identity, and take notice, because
Yeah.
sometimes he'll use things like a sign of a building to like,
Oh, no
but
doubt.
to be in a posture to listen and to be
Yeah.
able to notice, because if we get
S
so caught in the busyness and we're not seeking, we'll miss. And the Lord, he is so good to speak to us. He is wanting desperately to speak to you, but you got to seek it.
Mhm.
You got to
That's so
seek it.
good.
Um, yeah.
Wow. We appreciate you joining us. Just before we close off, I want to thank Roland. He said, or she said, faith is an interesting word. And this is because its meaning is to hold on to thoughts whereby these thoughts have no proof, no evidence, but still to walk in faith. That's really good. We appreciate you joining us every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and being released as we speak on podcasts, mainly Apple, Spotify, and Google. We're still waiting to be accepted by Apple for that. And of course, always on these channels of social media, from Michelle's group to my group, in LinkedIn and YouTube. Just want to say thank you for those of you who listen live or recorded. Please, will you do us a favor, not for a pat on the back, but review it, share it. Maybe someone needed to hear that eagle story that Michelle said. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thanks. Thank
We could talk
you.
for hours.
Love
I
you.
know.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we
Yeah.
could.
And
That's why we
thank
come back every week.
That's why we keep coming back. So are you going to do my challenge? I'm putting you on the spot live. Now it's harder for
Ooh.
you. You're in a different position than I am.
Be
So
good
what
for
I'm talking about, we're doing a challenge. You can join us. We're doing 99 reels, one every day. It's starting today, starting tomorrow. So Michelle's already real active, but she's
you.
got way more stuff than I do. But so
I think
no pressure on that. Okay, no.
no, thank you. I will
Okay.
definitely take that. I think there's room for having challenge to just be more bold in the way that we're showing up and
Yeah.
sharing our voice. I think there's too
So
often there's things that are holding us back that
someone
uh,
may say, "Why would I do that?" Well, if you don't have a business, you don't want to create community. Don't do it. But if you're really looking for a 2024 to come out the door and start making connections and serve people, help one person every day, as my one coach says, that might be a challenge. To let us know in the comments or by messaging us if you're going to take us up on that challenge. So, Michelle, God bless you. I hope your rest of your day goes well. I know you have a busy one.
it's good. Blessings.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys. We'll talk to you in the next episode of Faith in Business, Finding Your Voice in Identity.